Hello again, parents, and it's Toby back with you to talk again about parenting issues. Last week I said I wasn't just mainly talking about single parents because it is a holistic issue. So this week I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about me. I'm kind of not shy, but kind of an introvert. And so even when I decided to do this YouTube video, it took a while for me to decide that yes, I want to do this because it's like, oh my God, people are going to hear me and see me and maybe judge me. But then it's such a passion of mine that I decided to just forego all that and put it out there. So the first 2 weeks I kind of talked about like just some examples of things that I've done, but without any real idea to like how I came to make these decisions or why I decided to go that particular route. So I'm just gonna make a short video today, just kind of talking about me and I guess my worldview and some of the life experiences that led me to being the kind of parent that I was and still am, even though the kid, as you saw in some of the little clip I figured out how to make, he's not really little, but that's how I always refer to him. So as I mentioned, a single parent, came from small town Indiana, and I'm the oldest of four. And my mom had significant others in her life, but she was also a single parent. So as the oldest, I really had a lot of responsibility at a very young age to help, with my siblings. And my grandparents and my mom, they called me her right arm. I was looked at more as a peer as opposed to a child, and I helped her raise her kids. And so it was a lot of responsibility. I remember cooking she worked shift work. So, sometimes in the evenings I would be there with them. I remember cooking my first full blown Thanksgiving dinner at 14, because she was at work and I wanted to have a nice dinner for everyone, when she got home. So I didn't necessarily, it just was like a way of life. It was like how things were. So I didn't really realize that it was different. And my youngest brother, we shared a room. So I would get up with him at night if my mom was at work. He called me mom for a while. He was a little confused about the dynamics because, I was with him so much, and he did call me mom for a while until he figured out that I was his older sister. He didn't have two moms. He just had one, but it was my little buddy. We were together all the time. And sometimes I would get up with him at night and then still get up and go to school the next morning. So again, it was just the dynamics of our family situation, not good or bad. It's just how things were. So I think I kind of grew up parenting. So when I became a parent myself, I did take it very seriously because I realized how important the job was. I realized this is something that you couldn't just step into and not understand the enormous responsibility you had of someone else's life. And then I think also the fact that my son was premature. He spent his first month in the NICU, as I mentioned, and I just felt so blessed to have him, because it could have gone so many other different ways. And he turned out to be perfect, the perfect kid, perfect, person that he is now. I just felt like, okay, I've got this kid, and this is now become the most important thing in my life. So that's kind of why I maybe grasped onto things a little bit more seriously than some of my peers did, because I had experience with parenting coming up. And then I just really was grateful for the fact that I was chosen to have this son and for him to survive. So I just took all of that to heart. So that's kind of where some of my parenting ideals came from. And I was a strict parent. I remember my son coming home from school I don't know if he was in the first or second grade, but we talk about what you did and all that, and he was so proud because in school they had talked about capitalism and socialism, and different democracy. And so when they got around to asking questions, he raised up his hand and said, I live in a dictatorship. And he's like, because I knew what it meant. And when they asked us, I told him I lived in a dictatorship. And I just thought that was so funny. And when I saw his teacher, because I volunteered at the school sometimes, when I saw his teacher a few weeks later, she just looked at me and started laughing. And she was like, dictatorship, really? And I was like, hey, he defined it. Apparently that's what he's living under. So I was a strict parent, which we've already kind of established in the previous videos. But I did, what things weren't easy for me. One of the things that I reflect on now that I didn't quite understand at the time when I had my son is my mom told me, don't go anywhere you can't take your baby. She wasn't babysitting. She wasn't doing any of that. So the way, when I first had him, I was in school, but I took that first semester off and I was getting unemployment. I still lived at home, which was great because even though I had certain bills I had to pay and I had to take care of myself and my son, it wasn't like I was doing that and paying rent. So that was a blessing. But I was at home with him until he was 6 months old. And then, my sister was there at the time. So on the nights that I had class, she would babysit for me. So I really had a good foundation there. My son's parental great grandmother lived in the same school district that I did. So once he started school, he could catch the bus at my house and then get dropped off at her house. So we had a great network of support system. But I only got those breaks if I was at work or if I was at school. Like my mom was very clear that there would be no babysitting outside of you going to work and you going to school. And I was 21 when I had him. At the time when you think you want to go to clubs and you can do all these fancy things that I didn't get to do. And I was kind of resentful of that. But now thinking back, my mom was only 40 or 41 when I had my son, because I was 21, so she was 41. And thinking back when I was 40, so long ago, I kind of understand how she felt about that and how, she was still young and she was a community activist and she was working. She had midnight basketball programs. She was doing advocacy in the schools and counseling. So she had a full life and she had a significant other and she had 3 other younger kids. So she had a full life. So, it shouldn't have been about me and what I was doing. And so now I understand that. But then also I'm grateful because it did forge such relationship that I have with my son. We went from being, parent and child to me being a dictator to, us, you becoming friends. And now, he's my best friend and we talk and we counsel each other and give each other advice, or we hang out or go to the movies, just different things like that. So because she had that stance, it created this relationship that is the most cherished relationship in my life. So that hardship that I thought was a hardship really wasn't. And that's a lot of times, I think that was one of the things that prompted me to start doing these videos, is because not that 41 is a young grandmother, but she was young. She was still young and vibrant and living her life. And I had a lot of questions and a lot of struggles. And I would go to her like, he's crying, he's doing this or that. And, she didn't know, because a lot of those issues were related to him being premature and none of her kids were. So she didn't know how to advise me. And then just other things that she was like, hey, you're the parent, you figure this out. And so I understand that. But then I thought, well, maybe there's some other young mothers out there who also have grandmothers that are 40 or 41 and they're still vibrant in their careers and traveling and in love, and they're like, I'm your grandparent, but I'm not going to raise another child. So maybe those people like me might need a little encouragement or a little advice, or just someone to say, hey, you haven't experienced this alone. You're not the only person out there struggling or that might have these questions. So that was another one of the things that prompted me to do these videos. And then secondly, when my son was coming up, we didn't qualify because I did work, but I had made very little money, but we didn't qualify for public assistance, and I actually didn't want it. Like when I was pregnant, I had Medicaid, thank God, because he was in the hospital for a month, and that covered a lot of those medical experiences. But after that, it was just the two of us and whatever I could provide, and so I always told him that we were not statistics. I was not what every statistics said a single mother was supposed to be, and he would not be whatever statistics said a young black man in America should be. And so I always told him that. I always said we are not statistics. And so then it segued into we are more. We are more than what society thinks we're supposed to be, and we're more than these statistics that have been subscribed to us. So that's another reason that kind of prompted me to do these videos, especially with some of the things that are happening in society right now, is that we are more than what people think we are, and we can show them that, and we don't have to prove anything to them, but we can, prove it to ourselves. So that's a little bit of the backstory there. Being a single parent, I didn't get any child support. I'm not going to talk about Randall's dad on any of these videos because it was a contentious relationship between the two of us, and between my son, my son Randall and his father, and he's now deceased. So I'm not going to say anything about him or disparage him in any way in the videos, because as I tell my son, whenever anything comes up, you can't blame him. I brought him into your life. I chose this man for you to be your father, because Randall wasn't an accidental pregnancy. It's something that he and, myself and his dad had sat down and talked about, that we were going to do this together. So, I have to accept my part and responsibility in that. And I always told him, this is a situation. We have to figure out how to move on from that. We can't dwell in it. We can't just sit in this situation and say, woe is me, or this is our plight in life. We have to realize that this is where we are, and then develop steps how we're going to move forward from that. So that was, so another one of the driving forces that I had, mainly to prove things, I guess, also that, I made this decision to have a kid, but he was not a mistake. I always let him know that he was not a mistake. So I did struggle. I started out at a 4-year college away from home. I floundered. This was before I had my son, because I had him when I was 21. But I ended up going back home and going to a community college for a while, and then going back to another 4-year school, which was nearby, so I could commute, because by that time I did have my son. So I would take 1 or 2 classes per semester, or depending on my finances, I might have to take off a semester and work and save up money. But the goal was to get my bachelor's degree, and it was a struggle. Sometimes we just lived on, like unemployment, or student loans, or something. If I had extra for my student loans, and we used that to buy groceries after I got my books and paid my tuition. So, I tease him now, because for his birthday, like, I got him a polo shirt, and I was like, look at your mom buying you designer clothes, kid. Like, whoever thought this would happen? So we didn't have all that, and he grew up not expecting it. So now if I get him something, or if he buys himself something, we joke about it, because it wasn't our thing. So, at times I mentioned where I would work 2 or 3 jobs, because he was, when he was in elementary and middle school, he was bullied a lot. It got really bad for him, and I won't go into any detail about that. That's his story to tell. But I pulled him out and put him into private school because of that, and I had to work 3 jobs to keep him there. And so, so it was a struggle. It wasn't like I'm this person who can sit here now and speak all authoritatively or extemporaneously about the aspects of being a parent and what you should do this or you should do that. It's all born of the struggle. It's all born of, I've been there, and it's been bad. My finances have been bad. My relationships might not have been the best. I might have made some decisions for my son and bringing us from one state to another, thinking it was the best for him. Maybe in the long run, it won't be, but I think it was. And I think now he thinks it is too. So, I just wanted to say I'm not trying to be anything more than what I am by doing these videos, but my story is part of the story of being a parent and is part of his story. And of course, I haven't gone into any significant detail, but I have given you a little bit more information about me, how I started out young, kind of dealing with responsibility. I grew up in responsibility, which kind of colored my view as being a parent, how I have struggled and had to figure out a lot of this on my own. I've had to figure out so much of this on my own. And maybe somebody else might not have to. Maybe somebody will. The book that I mentioned last week, Jawanza Kunjufu, To Be Popular, Be Smart. He's got other books out, The Conspiracy to Destroy the Black Man, or Tips on Parenting. Those books were so valuable to me when my son was in elementary school. There are other books out now that are just as equally powerful and useful, but those are just the ones that I used. And maybe somebody will pick up one of those books and it might be helpful to them. So that's the whole goal of this, I think, right? Is just to say, we are more, we can strive to be more, our kids are more, and that we can help each other. It's a community. And I did have a community that helped me, but I always had to have a plan A, B, C, and sometimes D in everything that I was doing. If I had a car, I had to have a backup for if my car wasn't working, but then I had to have another backup. If I found somebody at work that lived near me that could take me to work until my car was fixed, I had to have a backup if that person wasn't available. Then I needed to know the bus route. If I had daycare, I had to have a backup daycare provider if that person couldn't make it. And then I had to have another special separate arrangement with my boss to say, both my backups have failed. Now I might have to stay home. So I always had to have multiple contingency plans because I was figuring out a lot by myself. And I know a lot of people today are figuring this out by themselves. And so I'm just hoping that, there might be some tidbit that I can share that might give someone an idea or spark a conversation, or just to help them understand that they are not experiencing this alone. Sometimes that's the biggest thing, is that you're not alone in experiencing these things. I had a conversation with my nephew yesterday, actually. He's a junior in high school, and we were talking about just things, movies. I saw Black Panther. He's going to see it today. And so, I didn't give him any clues, but we were just talking about the power of it and what it meant to me and how much I want him to see it. So we're just talking about general things. But I asked him if he thought about what he's going to do after high school. And he said, well, I really think that I want to go to college, but maybe a community college near me. And then he hesitated and said, but a four-year college is good too. I can go to a four-year college too. And I think he was saying that for my benefit. And so I said, well, sometimes you have to start out slow. I said, for me personally, I really wish I had started out at a four-year a community college and then transferred to a four-year school, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be away from home and the responsibility that comes along with that. And he said, you do? And I said, yes. I said, I struggled my first year at college, and then I had to come home and regroup, start at a community college and then go back to a four-year college. I said, because it's different. And in high school, your teachers will kind of stay on you a little bit more to study and get things done. But in college, they think you're adults and they're going to kind of let you go for it. And you've got to take on that responsibility yourself. And he said, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know you struggled. And I said, oh yeah, I struggled. And I said, I came through it. And but if I had to do over again, I would have started out at community college. And he said, yeah, that's what I want to do too. Like, he kind of changed it up. So I know ultimately the decision's up to him and his parents, and it's none of my business, and that I can't be part of that decision, and I can't influence it. But I just hope I made him feel like you're not the only person that's had these thoughts, or that have thought, maybe that's a little bit too much responsibility for me at this time. Maybe I should start out a little slower. And so that's the whole purpose, right? Is to give someone an idea that they're not alone, and that it's okay to reach out, and it's okay to feel like you're stumbling and scared, because there are people out there that have gone through the same thing you have, and maybe they can help you, and maybe they can't. Maybe your situation's completely different, but you do know that other people have struggled, and they've come out on the other end of that struggle, and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for you, and that you too can come out on the end of your struggle. So that's kind of the point of it. So next week I'll get back to talking about some other fun and maybe not so fun or challenging things that come along with parenting. But this week I just wanted to focus a little bit more on why I decided to do this. And I hope that resonates with someone. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel. Click the little bell so that you get the alerts whenever new videos come up. And I'll be seeing you next week. And remember that we are more. Thanks. Bye.